Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another session of Zoom session in which we are having an in conversation with session with Alejandro Telemaco Tarraf, who's the director of the international competition film Piedra Sola. And Alejandro will be in conversation with Sudha Padmaja Francis. Let me introduce briefly both of them. Alejandro Telemaco Tarraf studied cinema at Buenos Aires University and cinematography at SICA. His short films have been showcased at prestigious festivals like the Rotterdam, Busan, Montreal, and La Habana. Earlier in his career, in 2014, he was selected at the 9th Buenos Aires uh, talents by the Berlinale Film Festival. And in 2015, he was one of the audiovisual artists at the uh, at the Biennale of Young Artists in Buenos Aires. Uh, Alejandro, a warm welcome to this session. And Alejandro will be in conversation with Sudha Padmaja Francis, who is a filmmaker based out of Kerala. She graduated with a master's in creative enterprise film from the University of Reading, UK. She's a recipient of Felix Scholarship for the year 2016-17. Her first short film in Malayalam, I Test, have been featured in many international film festivals. She has also completed a documentary with the help of PSBT, which is titled Orma Jeevigal, Memory Beings, which also was selected at the Taiwan Association of Visual Ethnography. She also did an MA in Cultural Studies from the University of Hyderabad. And she's a very close friend of the IFFK. I welcome Sudha also to this conversation to lead the Q&A session. Now over to you, Alejandro and Sudha. Thank you.
Okay. So I think I'll start by congratulating you, Alejandro, on your debut feature.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to the 25th International Film Festival of Kerala. I think I watched your film twice, and I should say I really liked your film. I think we could start by talking about the title a little bit, because there's no English title or translation available. So could you tell us a little about the title of your film?
Yes. Well, the title I decided to keep it in Spanish, the title, but because there's not an accurate translation in English, but the closest way is The Lonely Rock or Loneliness Rock or Solitary Rock, and it's and it's based the title in a poem of Atahualpa Yupanqui, who is a writer, who was a writer. He died in Argentina, very famous. And he wrote a poem, Piedra Sola, Poemas del Cerro, and that poem speaks about a rock that fell into the ground, and that fall into the ground, and that rock was become a refuge for the old shepherds in the past to rest, to contemplate the landscape, to be there. So I found that I fell in love with that poem, and we decided to, and I decided to go into the north of my country, because I'm from Buenos Aires, but that rock is in the north, 2,000 meters, 2,000 kilometers from Buenos Aires. And the idea, and I said, okay, I'm going to try to find this imaginary rock, no, because that rock was written in the 40s. And I found that rock. I don't know if it's the correct rock of the poem, but I really like that rock. It's a volcanic rock.
So other than the poem, which of course is a starting point, like you said, because I read somewhere that an earlier shot of yours was again based on a remote landscape and a person in that remote landscape. And again, this film also follows a similar kind of premise. that there's a remote landscape and a community that's entrenched in that land. So is there something in your artistic and personal journey that takes you to such spaces?
Yes, I think well, I don't know. I'm drawn to that, no, but it's a feeling, an intuition. But my, but if I had to analyze a little bit, is that um, there's a kind of purity there in that kind of landscapes and that kind of characters, and I always I I feel in my side that in me that I'm filming the first man, no, like a first man, like a first place, like a first moment, no, like it's a kind of unique and in terms of how you say, there's a kind of purity there. Um, so I think it's one of that reasons why and I feel that is, and I can link with the idea of the genesis, no, like it is the beginning of man, the beginning of time, no. I suppose that it's more like that.
But you know, when you watch the film, it starts off like this, almost like an ethnographic, anthropological kind of a documentary. But then it goes on to become things which is not just that. And that I think is the beauty of the film, because we've seen films where, you know, there's this hybrid form where you've used documentary and you've used those real people and but built a fiction out of it. But this particular film has pushed, I think, those boundaries even beyond that.
Yes.
So I'm very sure it must have been a very difficult process to push those boundaries within, you know, these kind of shifting forms.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little about that process?
I remember when I screened for first time, no, for second time in Mexico, was the Latin American premiere, and and I remember that the one of the programmers or one who wrote about the film, he said, I don't know if it's a fiction or a documentary or it's what it is, because it's so diffuse and it's in the limit. You are in the limit, no, and I said, yeah, and maybe at that time I put it in words, no. But of course, I wanted to make that film, and the approach was more documentary, more in terms documentary, more observational documentary. Because first you need to live with the community for sure, no, and to be there and spend time, and and we spent a lot of time together with the community. We were a very small crew, and then I had that. Then I gather all the material and I gather the stories, and then I create with them the fiction part. So, but of course, in the end, in the edit, I have many different. You need to make something coherent, no? But my idea, in the initial idea, in terms of making the narrative, was to give some information to the spectator to follow the story, and little by little, that become more diffuse and more diffuse and more diffuse. And like, for example, in the Puma, in the middle of the story, doesn't it not appears in a transformative way, but not in a transform, but not real, no. So I feel that I felt that to make a film, I wanted to make a film in the beginning with more in the earth, and then going into the sky, no, going to the diffusion, no, to the climbing the mountain, no, up and up and up. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just said that you know, you built the narrative, you built the film with them. So
Yes.
as actors, as people who sort of gave you the material to make this film, could you tell us a little more about that particular collaboration? because some of the sequences sometimes doesn't even seem that it's like, recreated. It's almost as if you were there as an observational filmmaker, but of course it was recreated. So
some of the moments is real, and the others is recreated. But the idea always was to be to film in, of course, in a real way, in a kind of a reality,
yeah,
Not, I didn't want to put we didn't use light so much almost, so was try to give it the presence of reality, the strong presence of reality. um, and I did an exchange with with all the community, but with the main character. With he explained me as I said, I'm from Buenos Aires, so I spent there a year to understand the cosmovision, almost a year to spend time there to study, the cosmovision and understand. And I wanted to, of course, it's my country, so it was like a necessity for me to understand more about me and more about my country. And then he introduced us to the community, and I think I took I took a lot of things from the stories, from the oral myth of them, but I put a lot of my personal stories in a way. So was a weaving between me, my personal fiction
yeah,
story,
yeah,
and him, or them. So was like a weave, no?
yeah.
Between both. For example, my grandpa, he was a butcher, and he was a different type of butcher, but he was a butcher like him. He was someone that he was selling into. He was a seller, no, and he was a butcher and a seller. So there were, of course, there were parts of me and part of the community,
Mm.
and what is and the question was, okay, where is the meeting point between their stories and my story? I don't know if I'm explained very
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Since you mentioned that you used natural light as much as possible,
Mhm.
that shows through the film. Other than that, even sound,
Mhm.
there's a lot of, I mean, most of the sound comes from nature. It's just wind, leaves rustling, and other kinds of sounds from nature. So
Mhm.
there's this light which is natural and sound which is taken from nature. Can you speak a little about that aesthetic?
Mhm. Yes, they are in that area.
Mm.
I think one of the most important sound is the wind, because it's pure wind. There's almost no trees. There's tolas, which is like a kind of bush,
Okay.
but there's no tree because we are at 4,000 meters of altitude, and it's very yes, it's like we have the sky, the earth, and the wind. No more. There's no more things. So it's very ascetic, no? You say ascetic.
Yeah.
Um, and we said, okay, what for me is very important, the sound, because it's I always say that it's 100 and 100, not 50 and 50, because normally you say 50% image for 50% sound. And I believe that a film needs to you need to you need to tell the story in sound,
Yeah.
basically. And I think the sound allows you to enter into an imaginary place,
Mm.
and a place of imagine, and to enter to the unknown. So in the beginning, for example, that storm was real, and I didn't want to put because we hear the storm, but you cannot see very well the storm. What is, because you can, and I say, okay, why I'm going to put a storm spectacular if it's not was that was not true, and the true was from the sound. no? And we basically we placed the camera there, and we saw the small rays, but the sound was important. um, and then um, and then I thought that, of course, the nature is a character for in my film, and okay, if he's a character, he has a voice. um, and okay, shall we hear this voice? Yes. Well, and I put it in the film, and I give a place basically.
Also, another thing that struck me with these evocative, extreme long shots where you place these characters, this community, individuals against this backdrop of the landscape of geography on one hand, and at the same time there are these evocative close-ups of people's faces, and it's as if these people's faces is taking the film forward. And
Yes.
so this mix of these evocative long shots and close-ups. Can you?
Yes. Yeah. I can explain a little. That was, of course, it's intuition, no? When you film,
Yeah.
you have a necessity. You place the camera, and well, in my case, I try to feel. I put the camera and I see what is. But in terms of long shots and close-ups, in a way are the same because they are part of the geography. And for me, the face was a geography, a pure geography. So in a way, yes, it's technically it's a long shot and a close up, but for me it's the same. It's and the details, no, and how you, yeah, it's like a geography of the place, no.
Also, talking about the journey of the film, how is it finding funds or financing or taking it from paper to screen as an independent filmmaker?
Was super difficult, really. It was super difficult because I am the producer of the film, and in the beginning I got a very small funding from my country, from Argentina, but very small, and is you can make a short film with that fund. So technically, but we with Alberto Alas, who is the cinematographer and as a producer as well, he's another producer. We said, okay, we have this little money, what we can do with this, and we okay, how we can do a film, but how we can make it. And we decided to find people that can help us, and then appears our Mexican co-producer. He helped us with the camera, and the other helped us with everything was like a favor, no? It's imagine we were between 4 and 10 people there, and very small crew, but a lot of time. So and journeys, were a lot of journeys involved, so that is money. And in the end, we finished. We gathered. We finished the film, and we been selected by the Doha Film Institute, and they support us to finish the film. And thanks the Doha, we finished the film, basically. So it was through them that we finished as we like, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the presentation in Rotterdam.
Okay. Do you have anything else to share with the audience here at the IFFK? Something that we missed out? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, well, no, what I want to share is for me, it's an honor to be there. Well, I cannot be, I am in the spirit, but not in the, not in person. But for me, it's an honor to share with the audience there in the festival in Kerala. And I hope that they like the film, and I always say, maybe take your time not to enter into the film, because it's not a slow film, but you need in the beginning to enter, and when you enter, you are there climbing the mountain with them. So
So thank you so much, Alejandro, for your time. And I hope you come to Kerala in person and not just in spirit to the next IFFK, hopefully. And all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.